Hi, I'm Anne McElhinney.
And I'm Phelim McAleer.
And this is the Anne and Phelim Scoop.
Yes, the podcast.
Coming to you from New York at the moment.
Yes.
We're not in Venice.
Anymore, Dorothy. Scaredy and Top are doing well. We will periodically put up photographs to show that our cats are alive, proof of life photographs. We've got a very packed program today. First of all, we want to mention we're going to spend a lot of the program talking about our dear friend Orson Bean, who tragically died at the weekend.
On Friday night.
Last Friday. He was a very important person for us in many ways, and we'll be talking about him later, but it's put a bit of a gloom over us this week, and we want to share some stories and tell you what a great person he was, professionally, personally, politically, all of the above. You may know him as Andrew Breitbart's father-in-law, but he was so much more.
Yes.
You may know him as an actor. He was so much more. So we're going to get into all that detail later on. We're also going to be looking. We have announced last week that our play FBI Lovebirds Undercovers is coming to CPAC. It's going to be on the CPAC main stage on the 27th of February. We'll be talking more, and of course it's driven. And actually, not of course, it's driving people mental.
Completely nuts.
Completely nuts, which is actually, funny enough, I knew they were nuts, but it surprised me how nuts they are actually.
Yeah, it's really been a triggering event for a lot of people.
So
we're going to talk about that.
Talking of triggering, no, we're here, of course, covering every day, covering the Weinstein trial. Go to the WeinsteinPodcast.com and we're doing this in a unique way. We're taking the transcripts every evening. We're doing commentary on it, but we're sending the extra highlights of the transcripts to Los Angeles. They're being reenacted by voice actors and producing
amazing content, amazing drama.
We'll be giving you more detail on that later. And we're also going to be looking at racism, how you can
cure yourself of the racism you don't even know you have.
By having dinner and paying $2,500 for that dinner.
And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez also has something to say about that, so we're going to listen about that. And we're also going to find out about an amazing Yale study that has now connected fracking with sexually transmitted diseases.
Of course.
Very important. And you're going to hear about how I tried to burn down the Airbnb we're staying in
New York.
And then and much more, as they say, and much more. But we're going to start today by talking about our friend Orson, who really we're still reeling from the fact that on Friday night, last Friday night, Orson decided to, as he always does, by the way, go to the Pacific Residence Theatre in Venice,
down the road from
down the road from where he lives. His wife of 27 years, Ali Bean, was performing, and this is what he does. He just, would cycle, a lot of times cycle over on his electric bike or walk over to meet her after the show. And he walked, and then he tried to cross the road on Venice Boulevard on Friday night at 7:30.
Busy time.
He was clipped by one car and then run over by another one and was declared dead on the scene. And it's such a shock. We're still days and days later.
On Saturday morning, I got an email from someone, and where you can see the headline in the link, and it was actor comedian dies in car accident. And before I opened it, I thought all these people's names went through my head. I said, the person said, "I know he was a friend of yours," and all these names went through my head. And I never thought that the 91-year-old would be the person. Orson was the youngest 91-year-old I have ever met. He won a Critics' Choice Award for his one-man show,
Safe at Home.
LA Critics' Choice, at 89.
Yeah.
A
show that we saw many times and brought lots of friends to.
Yes, and we're really glad
we did. We're going to talk more about Safe at Home later on.
So many stories with Orson.
I like your story. I like the story about the Clinton emails on film.
But I will say there's so many stories we can't tell for family reasons.
Politically correct reasons.
Yeah, politically correct reasons, but also X-rated. I think we'd have to make the podcast explicit. But for example, you may remember we did the Clinton emails on film project, and actually it was in 2016 in the run-up to the election, where all the Clinton staff and aides and Hillary Clinton herself was looking like we're going to be we're being deposed under oath about the Clinton email scandal. And they would release the transcripts, but the judge wouldn't allow them to release the videos in case they were used for nefarious purposes during the election. So the judge was making a political decision that truth was going to be suppressed because to preserve one person's political election. So we took the transcripts and we got actors to reenact
amazing
the depositions, and they were amazing. The level of mendacity, the level of prevarication, the level of I don't remember. I think it was one person.
But also that but I think the main point is actually in some ways, and particularly with the story we're telling, is that the actors were so great. But
I was directing it.
You're directing for the first
time I'd ever directed actors. Right?
You're panicking.
I was panicking. I don't know how to direct actors. So I went over to see him. I said, Orson, how do you direct actors? What do you do? And he says, well, he said, actors will do whatever the director tells them. They're like children. Once they get the cameras there, you're the boss, and they will do what you tell them. And here's, and less is more. Very good. He says, if at the end they say, but if you ask me to do less, I won't be acting. He says that's your success. But he said, so he told me, give me all these tips about directing and practical tips and artistic tips. But then the thing he did most was on the opening day. When the first day of filming, he arrived in the theatre and came in, and everyone knew him, of course, all in the acting community, and they actually gave him a round of applause because he just won the Best Show, the Critics' Choice Award. And he turned to the actors and he said, well, you're so lucky to be working with Phelim. He's one of Ireland's leading directors. I've been directed by him many times, and he's the best director I've ever had. By far, he's just a wonderful. You're so lucky, and you can see all the actors going, "Oh my God!" And basically, by the time he'd finished, as you may know, Orson was a great storyteller. Some of his stories were true, some of them were not, but he had them convinced I was the Irish Tarantino. And if I told them to stick their hand in the fire, they would have done it for the artistic purpose that
because they suddenly felt really comfortable and felt very secure, and that's what he
made
did.
Them feel comfortable.
It was really kind.
So.
And it's, and everything about our relationship with him was like that. He was really generous. I just lived across, we live in Venice. He lived in the canals near us. We're still, as I said, we're still trying to process the fact that he's gone. It's an unbelievable
loss.
And we're not there. And we're so sorry for Ali. They had this incredible relationship. We're going to talk more about that later on. But we're just, our hearts and our prayers and thoughts go out to the family and this huge loss. I mean, they lost Andrew Breitbart, as you guys know, not that long ago, at the age of 43, and now to lose Orson like this in such a sudden way when he was so full of life. I mean, people, and that's one of the things people who don't know him are thinking, well, he's 91. Yeah, except for the fact that he was that 91-year-old. He was so alive.
I actually thought Orson had a fourth career in him as an old man actor now. Although he kind of dismissed that. He said there's lots of work for dirty grandpa roles, and he didn't want that. He wanted, he said Betty White's always in work because there's all these roles, dirty grandma, and grandma says the F word, and he says it's getting a bit old. Boom, boom. But I felt he had a whole career now, and him playing, old.
And we just saw him. So he played it. They both himself and Ali played in a show just now in Santa Monica at the airport at a little small theater there called Bad Habits, where he was a cardinal or a bishop or whatever, and
who wanted
to
get the convent out from under the Irish nuns,
and the Irish nun and the Irish, the Mother Superior played by his wife Ali, and it was such a delightful play, and we're so privileged and so honoured and so happy that we went to see that, and how many times and how wonderful evenings, loads of times we've had anyway, we're going to talk more about that. We'll put up some
photographs of us with Orson.
Yeah, we'll put up some photographs, but we had lovely dinners with him. But let's talk about the FBI Lovebirds, and I want to talk about Orson a bit more at the end.
Yeah, we'll talk about Orson at the end.
We want to share some more stuff with you about that.
Okay.
So we made the announcement that CPAC are going to host FBI Lovebirds at the end of the month in Washington D.C. And we thought there might be a little bit of pushback on that, but no, nothing really prepared us for what then
the madness,
complete madness.
Because we did FBI Lovebirds in D.C. before, and the theatre cancelled, but that's what they do. That's what liberals do. They don't like the left. They don't like anybody getting in on their little bit of artistic merit. But
it didn't take long for us to get a death threat, right?
Yeah. So we are fundraising on Indiegogo. Go to FBILovebirds.com. It's costing about 60,000. We're looking for 54,000 to go there. We need it. it's very expensive to bring a whole play, a whole
And
set,
if you
actors.
can donate, we are a 501c3, so you will get a tax deduction for that.
As you say, it didn't take us long to get a death threat.
It didn't.
Yes.
And we got Slave of Logic, by the way. I
On
love
Twitter.
these people. I love these people on Twitter who just won't use their own name. But Slave of Logic, who basically said, can we start a GoFundMe to send one lucky coronavirus victim to CPAC? I've got $100 to start.
Yeah. So they want to infect the 10,000 people who come to CPAC, basically because they're scared that the truth. And let me say, so it's the FBI Lovebirds undercovers. It's the text messages of Peter Strzok and Lisa Page.
Verbatim,
along with their behind closed doors congressional testimony. I do not add a word to this. I'm down as a writer, but in many ways I'm the curator of their truth and the truth.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is what's driving people crazy. I think also since we did the last one, Lisa Page has become this kind of girl around town in DC. She's giving interviews. She's become this martyr. And so Strzok has adopted a public profile. So I think they're sort of the Valerie Palma of this administration.
The victim du jour.
Yeah. And the cool people. And like the Daily Cost, the big left-wing site, Daily Cost, described this play as absolutely sickening.
It's funny, actually, when you think of the context of that from the left's point of view, this is the left, this is the Daily Cost, who didn't seem to have a problem with, the Julius Caesar Shakespeare in the Park here in New York, where they actually, where they stabbed
Donald Trump to death. Or Kathy Griffin, who beheaded Donald Trump. I took pictures.
I'm just wondering what the Daily Cost,
Anyways,
the Daily Cost think that was absolutely sickening.
The Daily Cost they want protesters at CPAC. And they call, obviously, the people at CPAC the deplorables, because that's what they believe.
And are they calling Dean and Christie the Dixie Chicks, are they?
Yeah, they want the Dixie Chicks. So the Dixie Chicks were boycotted by conservatives, which was the best thing ever happened to them, actually. They became massively and internationally successful. Susan Hennessy, who is a Brookings Senior Fellow. I remember Andrew Breitbart, talking about Andrew Breitbart earlier. He put on his Twitter handle, I'm a senior fellow at the Senior Fellows Institute at the Fellows. Because all these people are senior fellow. A senior fellow means nothing, right?
Now, she's also a CNN national security and legal analyst and a former IC attorney.
A CNN national security and legal analyst means nothing, right? So she's lawfare executive editor, Brookings senior fellow, CNN national security and legal analyst, and a former IC attorney. And she's based in Washington, of course.
She has 322,000 people who follow her on Twitter.
And she's written a book called Unmasking the Presidency or something. Anyway, she wrote a tweet, don't ever talk to me about conservatives and Christian values again. The politics of personal destruction for mere sport. This is disgusting and shameful. And if you're participating in CPAC, you are complicit. Don't lie to yourself about being on some removed high road. And that was retweeted last time we looked by 7,000 people. There were 3,000 comments and there are 26,000 likes. And it's like, it's the truth. It's their words written on work phones. They wrote, their FBI agents writing on work phones. And what did they write? They wrote, Trump's not going to get elected, is he? No, but let's set up the insurance policy. Or no, we can stop it. And
let's have a look. Actually, let's have a little look
at the trailer.
At the trailer for the FBI Lovebirds.
So
you get a sense.
We meant to tell you, Dean Keane is playing Peter Strzok.
Christy Swanson is playing Lisa Page. Let's have a look at this right now.
I have heard that you are regarded as the #1 counterintelligence agent in the world. Comment on that?
Did you get laid yesterday? I didn't. I'm concerned that someone forgot to validate my time or something. Oh, that's funny. Paid, not laid.
There's no way he gets elected, Dash. But I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy. God, Hillary should win 100 million to 0. Just went to a Southern Virginia Walmart. I could smell the Trump support.
Vomit. Vomit. Vomit, vomit, vomit.
You can come hang out in 4012 with me. I have remnants of Cubota chips and salsa.
It's going to be a Clinton-Trump race. Unbelievable.
What? Exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point, question mark, question mark, question mark.
Please don't ever text me again.
It's going to drive them crazy.
It's going to drive them crazy. But basically, I think we didn't expect such a massive kind of...
And what she was responding to was actually... The tweet she was responding to was one by Aaron Rupor. He wrote, there is no bottom.
There's no bottom. Like, how low can you go?
Yeah, and he got 8,500 likes and 1,900 retweets. Funny, for some reason, we don't know how many comments he got because it doesn't come up on his Twitter thing.
But I think what happened actually was that then someone called Benjamin Witz, who's also a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute,
Yes.
and editor-in-chief of Lawfare blog, and a law analyst for NBC News and MSNBC. So basically, he then wrote, in light of the president's disgusting comments yesterday and this piece of vileness, FBI Lovebirds,
FBILovebirds.com.
Phelim, by the way, calling Phelim a piece of violence.
Calling my work of art a piece of violence.
I will just reiterate that I'm proud to call both National Security Lisa Page and Peter Strzok friends. I'd admire both of them, and I will say this again and again as long as they're both stigmatized. So there. And by the way, he writes, and you're seeing those tweets. We're putting them up on the screen right now. But so there, isn't that what people say who are 4 years old? So there. Yeah, but anyway, so that's the level he's at. And that, by the way, got retweeted like whatever. The last time I looked, I think nearly 10,000 times. And Benjamin has been writing like text message or tweet after tweet after tweet. He's very upset.
We're going to show you some more newspaper, or websites. I mean, everyone's been at it, and it's like, what got up your trousers? Like, I mean, it's.
But we got a very nice. Fox News did a very nice sort of intro
let's show that.
Let's show that.
It's quite funny. It's like the news anchor is saying it, and you can sort of see her trying to not laugh, and then off screen you hear Brian Kilmeade. Let's hear his reaction. Okay, let's hear that.
The show, called FBI Lovebirds Undercovers, is a verbatim reading of anti-Trump text messages sent between Strzok and Page. Dean Cain and actress Christy Swanson will star in the show February 27th in Maryland. It will be the first play to ever be performed at the conference.
Wow, it's going to be exciting. I wonder if they're going to be on
I tried to keep a straight face, but I heard you laugh.
And they're just going to read the transcript, right?
Yes, they're acting out the transcript between the Lovebirds.
All right. I think we know how that show ends.
Right.
So basically, so we're going to have the FBI Lovebirds at CPAC. You can help. You can go online right now to FBILovebirds.com and donate what you can.
We're going to put up some headlines of what it was like when it premiered in DC. I mean, National Review said it was a scream. Federalist said it's a comic masterpiece. Even Vice News said it's the most dangerous play in DC. And I think Vice News were very honest about it, and they were very fair about it, actually.
Yeah.
And Vice News, big lefty place, but they said it's the most dangerous play in DC, and that is what has got the left going crazy.
Yeah.
That the most dangerous play is not going to play in a theatre of 500 people like it did the last time. It's going to play in front of 3,000 people, but it's going to play in front of the national and international media, and maybe on C-SPAN. They are scared that the truth about the Russia hoax is going to be more and more widely known. So let's keep them scared. Let's keep them on their toes. Let's make their lives miserable. So go to FBILovebirds.com, please.
Yeah. So we need to move on because we're running out of time. So basically, our next story is about, that we're here in New York. We're covering the Weinstein trial, and things are wrapping up. By the way,
yes.
I think we're 2 or 3 days away from the whole thing ending. By the way,
well, 2 or
but
3
this week
days
we've had
from the defense ending. Then you're going to have the prosecution's wrap up and the defense wrap up and then the judges wrap up.
But in memorable testimony since the last time we talked to you, we heard from, which I thought was really fascinating, because you remember that we had heard from, the prosecution had an expert witness called
Dr. Barbara Ziv.
Dr. Barbara Ziv, who is a professor at Temple University and is an expert on memory. Mm-hmm. And but actually then the defense had an incredible witness called Professor Elizabeth Loftus, mm-hmm. who in terms of CV, in terms of her professional qualifications, really does blow Dr. Ziv out of the water.
Yeah.
And she has an amazing CV. She has done an amazing amount of work. So she's 75 years old, I think. But she has been, in a lot of court cases, and her thing is that memory is very, very unreliable, and that in fact, if you have the right circumstances, you can plant memories in people, and you can also get people to relabel things that happened in their past.
I think the important thing is that she's basically a national hero, right?
Yes.
Because you may know her from the McMartin preschool, the fake child abuse scandal, where in the 80s, one child sort of said they were abused, and this exploded into this 300-child accusation that the McMartin family were part of a satanic cult. And basically, when you looked at it, it was a child abuse institute and overzealous law enforcement putting ideas in children's heads. And
creating hysteria,
but also creating, asking children leading questions, and I suppose rewarding the children in subtle ways if they
gave the
correct answers, and so created all these memories in these children. And she was the one that revealed this, and it was known as the memory wars, because there were all these people saying, that you can bury memories, and then there's people saying, no, these are false memories. And she came out a hero and established the idea of false memories being planted. And so she talked about this in court with her massive CV. And she talked about how post-event information can affect people's memories. So if something happened to you, and in the intervening time you read many media reports or several media reports about it, that they can contaminate your memory. And of course, there's no
example,
no incident and no person who's had more media reports than Harvey Weinstein. So people are talking now about events that happened 27 years ago, as in the case of the Sopranos actress Annabella Sciorra. And she is now saying, this happened, that happened, and her friends saying this happened and that happened. And of course the media has contaminated that 27-year gap, according to Dr. Loftus. And she also said that your friends can contaminate your memory, because your friend can say, you told me that, and then they can talk about it, and what the friend said, she said at the time, can become a memory. So if a cop keeps asking you questions, are you sure he didn't have black hair? Are you sure he didn't have black? Maybe what color of the hair? Was it black? And eventually you go, I think it was black.
I think it was black, yeah.
And you create this memory because to reward, but it's not necessarily done in a bad way, but it can seep in. And that's significant because, excuse me while I go down the road of Harvey Weinstein's genitalia here, but there's a whole debate about Harvey Weinstein, was he intersex and all this, and one of the witnesses, no, nothing unusual, nothing wrong. It was only after repeated questioning by law enforcement about whether he was intersex or not that she suddenly remembered, yes, actually, now you come to mention it, there was something, even though she denied it many times in the run-up. And
there's a few examples of that in the Weinstein trial. Yeah. There's also the witness that, was unusable by the prosecution originally, and then had 55 interventions from a medical memory expert, and suddenly had this much clearer picture of what had happened.
That's a third category that she talked about, was how your memory can be contaminated by therapy. So if many therapists use dream interpretation or imagination therapy. And many of them, will try and help you bring things together that aren't there. So this witness, the DA wrote to her lawyer and said, sorry, your case is untriable because your memory is so fragmented. But can we recommend this trauma expert psychologist? And after 55 visits, suddenly the story was solid and they were able to go ahead.
And it's not the only one. I mean, so there's a lot. So the whole issue of memory becomes very significant in this trial. So it was very useful to have to hear from Dr. Loftus. But anyway, we're going to keep you up to date. And obviously, the trial is not over yet. We don't have a jury yet. We don't have the jury haven't gone out yet.
Please go to the WeinsteinPodcast.com. Rate it, please. Actually, funny. I saw people are leaving negative reviews. One person said, "I don't like this. I can't believe these people are I wouldn't trust anything they say because they're climate skeptics." So people are trolling us and leaving bad reviews. So please go there. Go to WeinsteinPodcast.com. Leave a good star rating. Listen to it. Leave a good star rating. Leave a good review. This encourages other people to get other
and share
reviews.
it and share it with other people as well.
Share it with everyone you think might be interested.
So our next story actually is a fun story. We have a story. So racism has become a big issue in America. Just when you think that the country had been cured of racism by having had a president elected popularly twice who was black, and yet the country apparently has never been more racist. But so two stories. One that I thought was fabulous from The Guardian, where as I say, you read stuff like this and you think, is this like an Onion article? So basically, a growing number of women are paying to confront their privilege and racism at dinners that cost $2,500. So basically, you invite these two women over to your house and you pay them $2,500 and you bring your friends. And then they come and they basically, make you realize, even though you maybe aren't, make you realize that you're a big fat racist, basically.
Actually, it's funny. That was another thing in the Weinstein trial. How sometimes people can relabel something, so they can look back on an incident 20 years ago with a more aggressive view or a more angry view. And I suppose it's kind of like this guy stepped on my foot and I was really angry. And now I look back 2 years later, I realize I was really angry because he was black. But maybe you're angry because he stepped on your foot. So
it's called Race to Dinner, and a white woman volunteers to host a dinner.
Race to Profit, actually.
I would, yeah. I'm just thinking I'd love to do some version of this and charge $2,500, but I wouldn't be calling people racists while I was sitting there. A white woman volunteers to host a dinner at home for 7 other white women, often strangers, perhaps acquaintances. Each dinner costs $2,500, which can be covered by a generous host or divided among the guests. A frank discussion is led by founders Regina Jackson, who's black, and Syra Rao, who identifies as Indian American.
Yes.
And by the way, does that mean she's not Indian American? Because
we need to ask Elizabeth Warren on that now.
You would. They started Race to Dinner to challenge liberal white women to accept their racism, however subconscious, by the way, of course. If you did this in a conference room, they'd leave, Rao says, but wealthy white women have been taught never to leave the dinner table. You can't make this stuff up. So basically, they sit around the table and they start asking questions. And even people who are sitting at the table who think, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. There's one woman here that they quote, I want to hire people of colour, not because I want to be like a white saviour. I've explored my need for validation. I'm working through that. I'm struggling. She stutters before finally giving up. Yeah. So basically, there's this kind of, very high intensity situation.
So if you want to hire people of colour, if you don't hire people of colour, you're racist. And if you want to hire people of colour, you're racist.
But the other, then just coming off of that story, then we have this fabulous video, which we're going to share with you now, of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez questioning her white boyfriend about what he does and how he's trying to help others, particularly white people, acknowledge their racism. Let's watch it now.
Well, one thing I would say is there are alpha males and there are beta males.
So, Riley, what has been helpful to you in combating racism?
I think it's helpful and important to talk to other white people about racism. And I think a lot of people, they don't want to be racist. They don't think that they're racist, but they also don't know some of the things that they believe or say are and can be racist. And I think one of the effective ways is just to talk and kind of help teach them about why some of the things they believe or say or think are wrong, not necessarily racist, but that they're wrong. And that'll sort of chip away and, contribute to some development in this area, but not necessarily take somebody from being a racist to not being a racist in one conversation.
And it's just always being open to learning about racist things that we may have said or done without judgment and defensiveness.
So doesn't he seem like a lovely fella, though? Seriously, Phelim.
What woman would find that attractive?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to know. I mean, but the whole scenario is just.
God help us. I mean, gee.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary stuff.
That's attractive. That's attractive. That kind of.
Apparently so. We're moving on. We have to move on. We can't even.
To quote the former governor of California, and therefore I'm allowed to say it, a girly man.
A girly man.
Okay.
So the latest news, and everyone hang on to your hats, fracking, not alone does it cause every kind of calamity that you thought you knew that it caused. Now we know from Yale, because Yale want to study things that are important, we know from a Yale study that fracking causes sexually transmitted diseases. And this is a new report, just fabulous. So researchers from the Yale School of Public Health published one of the dumbest papers we've ever seen. And I'm just quoting here, by the way, from Climate Depot, our friend Mark Morano. Just a great story. They claim that some areas in which fracking takes place, Texas only. So they decided to do this study of fracking. But you know what? Let's only go to one place rather than, because it's obviously there's fracking in North Dakota, there's fracking in Pennsylvania. But no, let's go to just Texas. So they take this one place.
Part of Texas.
And they're saying basically that in the areas where fracking takes place, they have more sexually transmitted diseases. Embarrassingly funny, yes, fracking.
But only there's 5 main sexually transmitted diseases. But in these areas of fracking, only 2 of them have increased. And the other 3 have decreased or stayed the same. So are they saying that fracking then protects you from the 3, but increases the 2? And why didn't they go to Pennsylvania? And why didn't they go to Ohio? And why didn't they go to North Dakota? Because the figures don't.
So basically, the question is like, how did this paper even get? And by the way, on the serious note, how did this paper even get published? Because what this is called data dredging. This is where you have a theory, fracking is the worst thing ever. Let's connect it now to something awful like sexually transmitted diseases. And then let's just cherry pick these particular things and try and massage the numbers to work. But as you say, there's 5 main sexually transmitted diseases. They only look at 2, and then instead of looking where fracking's happening generally, which is happening all over the place, they decide to go to a couple of counties in Texas.
Scientists have a name for this, the barn. I think it's the barn shooting at the barn door effect. What you do is you shoot at a barn door like this, several times. Then you draw a target around it. Oh, yeah. And you look like you're a really good shot. So what they're doing is they're drawing a target around, looking for an area where it's increased, and then they put a fracking thing on top of that where they ignore other areas where it's decreased. So it's
kind of sad, though, by the way.
It's another reason why you shouldn't send your children to university.
Particularly Yale, by the way. I mean, you just think that, you can imagine this from a lesser establishment, but no, actually, no. And then in local news from New York, I tried to burn down the Airbnb, just to let everyone know. And here's a photograph of what I actually did. Do you see that photograph? That's not black and white. So, yeah, I made a magnificent frittata. That, by the way, it was originally a magnificent frittata. I left it in the oven, turned the oven off, I thought, and went off to get my hair coloured, and then got a phone call from the owner saying, that's apparently
the neighbours.
Smoke.
The neighbours
are going.
The neighbours
nuts.
are panicking. The neighbours are about to kick the door in.
Yes, on a 7 floors walk up, and we're on the 5th floor. You can imagine how the people feel. The poor lady's upstairs, with the smoke coming out, and the smoke alarm had gone off. But so that was a learning curve.
Yes. It was.
And you don't want to do that.
One thing, but just before we go on to our final, I have to say, it looks like Joe Biden, as you know, is not doing well, is not going to succeed. And it's actually finally proof that perhaps there are some intelligent Democrats out there, because, I mean, one thing, we watched the Clarence Thomas documentary, and Joe Biden was... I mean, I hate to say it, a complete idiot in that documentary. Like, it just made no sense. But at least he was sharp when he could disguise his lack of intelligence in a kind of by fluency. But now, as he's got old, he's less fluent. His grasp of vocabulary is not as good, and it really exposes him. And I was thinking, he's not going to last. Like this will not work. And I was sort of hoping that they would choose him because he was such a bad candidate, but no, they've been smart. So
if they had chosen him, that footage from the Clarence Thomas documentary would be just priceless.
Yeah. But let's see who emerges now from Super Tuesday as we go forward. It'll be interesting.
It'll be very interesting. So we've come to sort of the last section of this podcast, which we want to devote to our dear friend Orson Bean, who we still cannot believe died on Friday night in a horrible car accident where he was hit crossing the road to go and see his darling, the love of his life, by the way. And we've been friends with Orson for a while, and we learned. I mean, and I think there's probably people out there, fans of Orson's, who don't even know the whole story of his life. He had a horrible childhood. At the age of 6, his mother said to him, "You have to make sure your father doesn't leave us, and if he leaves us, I'm going to kill myself." And so the child took on this massive responsibility to try to love the father enough that the father wouldn't leave home. And at the age of 16, when he had the father had left, the mother had started to drink a lot. She'd started seeing a lot of men. Orson had moved out of the house and was living in a small little room at a hotel, and actually was really peaceful for a moment in his life. His mother phoned him on her birthday and said, come home, I need you to come home. And he didn't, and she killed herself. And he was haunted for most of his life about that. And one quote from Orson, we're going to show a little clip as well from this amazing one-man show that Phelim mentioned earlier that won the the LA Times Critics Award 2 years ago. But he said in an interview, "I don't know anyone who doesn't have an empty spot at the center of him, which must be filled in order to be really happy. That spot, like it or not, is reserved for God." And so he talks about, he had, I think, a moment where he so he was you can imagine having that happen to you when you're a young man, a young boy, basically a 16-year-old. He went through a period where he drank an awful lot and then joined AA. And when he was in AA, and it's told slightly differently in his one-man show, but when he was in AA, he met a man who said to him, you should pray every day, even if you don't believe it. Just get down on your knees and pray anyway, and just do it anyway. And he tells a version of that story in Home, Safe at Home, which is on YouTube and is free to watch. And we're going to show a clip of it now in a minute. But and I would highly recommend people to watch it. When I heard that he had died, I looked and 17,000 people had watched it on YouTube. And I think the last time I looked, it was 25,000. Yeah. But I think it should be 150,000 or 1 million people should watch it. Mm-hmm. But basically, he went home and he started to pray. He used to do this. He used to get down on his knees and he would pray and say, "If you're there, God, or if you're there, I had a good day." And he'd wake up in the morning and he would do the same thing. And the clip we're going to show right now, and we'll talk about it afterwards, the clip we're going to show right now is that he did that for quite a period of time, and then something happened. Let's watch that.
I had always felt guilty about that phone call in the stairwell of the Hotel Continental when I was 16. It had bothered my dreams all these years. My father had died long since, but my mother lived on in me and always cast a slight patina of sadness over the happiest of times. One morning I wake up, look around the room, and realize that something has changed. The sun is still peeking through the space between the curtains and the French doors. The little picture of Jesus is still by the bed. The cat is sitting on the rug glaring at me with her usual baleful expression that says she can't believe I have not yet gotten up to feed her. But something is different. All at once, it becomes clear to me. The guilt I have lived with all my life over my mother's suicide is gone. It's gone. Oh, thank you, God. And God, while I have your ear, thanks for all of it. I love my life. Well, that's about it, folks. I do want to say...
It's very hard to watch, and that, particularly with the last line, "I love my life." And he loved his life. My God, I mean, how much did he love his life, Phelim? I mean, we used to be like driving around Venice and we'd be going to our Costco. We all went to the same Costco, and you'd see him flying out of Costco on his electric bicycle, like.
Yeah.
And we had a dinner with some friends, with people from the Duck Dynasty people, Alan and Lisa Robertson, big shout out to them, and they were over, and our friend Margot was there, you know, our friend Arlen was there, Larry was there, and when he was leaving, and we'd all had a couple of drinks and everything, and Kristen was there, by the way, Rick was there, a whole bunch of people, and he's leaving, and our friend Quiva was there, he's leaving, and he says, I'm just going to get up on the bike, and they're like saying, "No way! What's going on here?" They're like, "We get a taxi for you," and he's like, "No, I'm going." And this is only a few months ago, so he was like 1991, but that was him, and this is like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and he's on his bike, whizzing around Venice, walking around Venice, going to meet his friends, going to have coffee. You remember he used to go. He had a French cafe every Thursday to meet a buddy of his. I mean, we're unfortunately not in Venice, but we can imagine people are devastated in Venice because he was such a fixture. But obviously on the much more personal level for Ali to have lost the love of her life, and Susie to have lost her dad.
Yeah.
It's just extraordinary, particularly given that Susie lost Andrew. You know, it's unbelievable, but he did really have a wonderful life, and he did really find happiness, and he did find the love of his life, which a lot of people don't. And he was so grateful to Ali, and he loved her so much, and we loved him so much, and we used to walk along the canals, and we'd just drop in, and we'd say, "Are you there?" Whatever, and he'd always come out, and and he always said the same thing. When you said to him, "How are you?" he said, "Better than I deserve." That was his line. Better than I deserve. We're just highly recommend everyone, please watch Safe at Home on YouTube. We're going to put up by Orson Bean. We'll put up a link. It'll be on the Facebook page. And whoever you love, give them a big hug tonight, because you never know the hour or the moment, because certainly I know people who don't know him and think he was 91, that it's like, you know, that, oh, sure, you were going to, you know, whatever. The guy could have rocked on for 15 years.
He could have had another, I think he could have had another artistic career, another acting career, and a whole new level. So he was born in the last year of the Calvin Coolidge administration. He was a guest host. He was on the Johnny Carson show 200 times. 90 of those times he was the vacation host for Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson not only had him on the couch talking to him, but when Johnny went on holidays, the only person he would let sit in was Orson Bean. So, and he lived. Then he had a TV career. He was nominated for a Tony. Then he was on Desperate Housewives. Then he had a role in Modern Family. His last big film role was in The Equalizer with Denzel Washington. He had a career, and then he won the Critics' Choice Award, LA Critics' Choice Award at 89.
For his own story, telling his own story, and such a deeply personal story. But honestly, anyone who wants to watch it, and we highly recommend it, it's funny. You will laugh out loud, and you will cry as much.
He was always a comedian.
So that's enough from us for this week. A very sad, a very, very sad week for us. Losing Orson, we still cannot believe it. So love all the people that you love, and we'll talk to you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.